Hello everyone, it's FarmSim Guy here, hope you're all doing well. Welcome back to the Beginner's Guide series to Farming Simulator 22. If you have missed the first episode, I will put a link up in the top corner now to it, and you will find it in the description below as well. And I want to say a big thank you to Auntie, who dropped a message in the comments below just suggesting that we put timestamps in it. I did mean to do that. So I've since gone back and added those in so you can find stuff a little bit more easily, and you will find those on all the videos going forward as well. And secondly, I want to say thank you to Jody, who requested production chains, some information on production chains. We will be getting to that in the next few videos, Jody, so do stay tuned. Now, if you're new here, there are going to be a lot of these videos coming out, hopefully in the not too distant future, alongside some of my other content as well. And if you like the content, you may want to consider subscribing and hitting that notifications button so you don't miss any of these videos going forward. Now, in the first video, we covered off some of the simple menus at the main menu level, and we had a look at loading up our first game. Today, we're going to jump in and have a look at the first game in a little bit more detail and drill down on those in-game menus. So without further ado, let's jump into it. So here we go, back on the main menu. Again, we hit career, and if you remember last time, there was empty slots everywhere. Now we have our first game save here. So all we need to do is click on this to continue. Now, I want you to just bear in mind what we see at the top here, name, my game save. That is the default name it gives you, but we'll show you how to change that after we've gone in. So all we do here is click on it. You know it's selected. You can see, particularly when you've got a game in there, it goes darker here and you get a blue line along the bottom, so you know you're in the right place. So all you need to do is hit continue and hit the start button if you've got some mods in there. If you haven't, don't worry, it should take you straight to the screen. So once you're fully loaded, this is where it drops you outside your house. And you know it's your house because you've got this big exclamation mark here. Now if you walk up to this, this is your sleep trigger, or where you can rest during the game. We'll come back to that in a little while. Now, one of the first things I'm going to show you, which is a very helpful tool to have, is the F1 menu. And basically, you hit the F1 button, and it brings up the relevant controls at that time. So you can see there at the top, the R button is for sleep. Now, I'm going to just caveat this here now, so we don't go too far into the series. I am on PC. I play on PC. I have not played the game at all on console or with a controller, so I don't know any of the console or controller commands, but the principle is the same. You'll have helper menu buttons for controls for console if you play on console. So it will show all the relevant controls, but with the controller alternatives instead of keys. Now, just to do this, you can hit R here, and you're allowed to sleep. Obviously, at the moment, we're in the middle of the initial tour, so it's not letting us do that. But that is how you skip forward time. So if you've finished all your jobs, and you have nothing else to do on the farm, and you want to skip forward to the next day, that allows you to jump forward some time to the next day. But if you remember, at the end of the last episode, we were about to jump in and work our way through the tutorial. So that is what we're going to do. But before we do that, I want to jump into all of the menus and walk you through what each of them do, just so you're a little bit more familiar with the game interface before we move on too far. So to access the in-game menus, you hit the escape button. And there we go. The guided tour one will disappear once you have either completed the guided tour or you abort it down here. And it will make the globe icon here the most prominent. Now, you can click on these one by one. So we'll start at the top and we'll work our way down. Or you can use the keys Q and E to move up and down. So we're going to start on the globe here. As you can see, this is your map, or your PDA as it's regularly called. Now the first view you'll see is all of the different crop types. Now there are too many crop types to fit on one page, so you can scroll over to the next page to see the last two. But as you can see, different colours for each of the crops, starting with wheat, barley, canola, oats, and then moving into corn, sunflower, all the way down. There's root crops in there, potato, sugar beet, and then some of the new crops that have come with FS22, grapes and olives and sorghum. So if you want to know what fields have a specific crop in, you can also click on these and it will turn individual ones off, so you can switch off as many as you like, or you can leave them all on. I tend to leave them on, to be honest. You get quite quickly used to the colours, and it's handy to see what's in which field, especially if you're going to pick up contracts and things like that. So we'll come to contracts in a little minute. Now, if you go up to your left and right arrows, just under the word filters there, and go through your crop types, the next one that it shows you is a load of different filters for the state that the field is in. So, as you can see at the moment, lots of green here, which relate to the stage of growing that these fields are at. Also, it's showing you there a field that's harvested, which is this one here, and it's also showing you fields that are ready to harvest. You'll also see there we've got one that is cultivated. Now, again, you can turn some of these off. So if you've got different modes on, if you've ploughed a field, for example, you can turn everything off and see which of your fields are ploughed. We don't have anything ploughed at the moment. We don't have anything just planted at the moment, but we do have lots growing. But you can see the fields that aren't growing, they are either ready to harvest or have already been harvested. But as you go through, you will see different states for these as you add to them, or certain times of the year. So we'll come back and check in this every now and again. Now let's click again, one more, to show you soil composition, because this covers off a few different things as well. So we'll turn on all of the filters there. So again, you will see some of these fields are in different states. The ones with green have weeds, and again, there is various different levels of growth for weeds, and you need to treat them slightly differently. So if you've got small weeds or early growth weeds, you can clear them with a machine. If it goes higher than that, you need to spray them with a herbicide. Now you'll also see these dark blue fields here. These are fertilized fields, and there are two different states of fertilization, 50% and 100%. Now, if you fertilize your fields appropriately, they will give you more crop when you harvest them. So always good to make sure that your fields are fully fertilized. Lime as well will give you an additional yield bonus when you come to harvesting your crops. So it also tells you the fields that need lime here. Also needing rolling. We can't see any there at the moment that require rolling. Usually you do rolling after you've seeded. So we'll maybe come back and have a look at the map once we've seeded a field so you can see that state. Mulched as well. That is when you basically mulch the ground, churn up the ground, and that can be used as almost a level of fertilization. That gives you an extra 2.5% yield bonus as well. And finally, the last one, stones. Field 6 here is a very good example of stones. Now, stones is an element of the game that you can turn off if you don't want to play with it, alongside lime, actually, and weeds as another one. And also a plough state, which we'll come to later on. But you can turn those off if you don't want to play with those. Again, all depends on your level of challenge, level of difficulty, how much you want to try out when you first start the game. But stones are an addition again for FS22, and they have an impact not just on your yield, but also damage to your machinery when you are combining or working machines in the field if there's large stones in there. They can be collected and they can be sold for money. Now, let's click the right-hand arrow again, and it takes us to hotspots, which is our final menu in this screen. And as you can see, it takes us back to the view with the fields and the crops in them. And basically what this does is show you what's available to you on the farm, and you can switch filters on and off to find certain things. So there we go. We'll turn off vehicles, combines, trailers, tools, and it shows just things like tip stations and loading stations. It shows us our house as well. We can turn that on and off. Contracts we'll come to. We don't have any workers or animals running at the moment. Productions as well. We don't have any productions showing at this part of the map, but we do have some productions down here. There is one there with a little conveyor belt with the boxes. We can turn that off. So again, you can filter through these. If I'm being honest, I very much tend to leave these on all of the time. I don't remember the last time that I turned any of those off for any particular reason. But sometimes you can find it. For example, this tractor here is actually got tools attached to it, and you can't see them sometimes, so it's got a weight and a cultivator at the back there. So when the tractor's there, you can't see those. One nice thing about the maps, though, is if you click on your tractor here, you can see down here, you can enter your vehicle. So you can click on space, and it takes you to the vehicle straight away, which is quite a handy thing to do, especially if you've got a large map and you're on the other side of the map. It's quite a nice thing to do. So we'll just hit escape there and we'll come back to this menu. And the last thing here we want to show you before we come out of this one is we're going to press X down here, or mouse over this and click onto it, and it shows you farmland. Now this is a nice view because what it does, it shows you the farmland that you own. So you can see down here we own the farm yard here and we own these 3 fields. You can also click on any other area of the map and it will give you the cost of that space, and it will also show you how much money you've got. So you can decide whether or not you can actually afford to buy them. So for example, plot 34 there would cost me virtually every penny I've got. 36, a long way to go till I'm able to buy that. And again, to come out of this mode, you press the X button again. Okay, the next menu item down is this steering wheel, and what this does is opens up the helpers, the workers menu, if you will. Now, at the moment, we do not have any active workers, as you can see right here, but if you click on one of these tractors, you can select that tractor, or this one, or the combine, and you can use an in-game helper. In essence, look on it as somebody to come and help you on the farm work the job. And what you can do in here, there's 2 options here, and we'll look into this in a little bit more detail in another episode, but just to give you an idea of what's what. There are 2 options here. You can do set destination, and what it'll do is pick a target location, and it will drive to that target. So what we'll do actually, just to demo this quickly, is we will select the pickup and we'll go to set destination, and it brings up this little icon. You can move this anywhere on the map that you like within reason. Sometimes it may not be able to find a route, but most of the time it's pretty good. And you do 1 click to pick your target location, and then that doesn't set it off. What it does then is allow you to move it around on this axis and choose the direction you want the car to be pointing in, or the vehicle to be pointing in when you're finished. So we will click about here, and as you can see, the vehicle has started moving. Now, if I quickly run over here, there is your vehicle being driven by your helper to another location. A very handy tool to have, and again, another excellent addition to FS22 to have the ability for them to drive all over the map. In FS19 and earlier versions, they were only able to drive in fields. Now the second option you've got is create a job. Now if you click on this, it'll give you a few options up here. One is go to, another option is field work. The tractor is out of the field at the moment, so it's not going to demonstrate that. But I'm going to come back to this in a future episode because helpers, I think, are an important aspect that you should learn a little bit more about. But if you're feeling brave and you want to give it a go before the video comes out, jump in and give it a go. But we will cover workers and helpers off in a lot more detail in a future video. But it'll allow you to set a helper up to run in the field and do a job for you. So you can, in essence, have, and you've got 3 fields here to start out with. You could have helpers in 2 fields and you could work the 3rd field. So it just gives you that flexibility to get more work done rather than doing everything yourself. Now the next icon you've got is weather. Now I'm going to level with you here. Because we turned off seasonal cycles in the last episode, it's not going to show you all the items. So I've turned seasonal growth back on here. And what we'll do, we'll go up. It's added another icon in here. So there's our globe with our map. There's our helpers menu. And then it's added this one in. Now this shows you the seasonal cycles for the year. It shows you the times that you can plant and the times that you can harvest. So as you can see at the moment, we can harvest wheat, canola and oats, potatoes and sorghum, but we can only plant canola. So you've got to wait till it's the right time of the year to be able to plant or harvest your crops. And that's the reason I suggested in the first episode, when you're starting out, when you're beginning, turn it off, because basically that allows you to then plant crops or harvest crops or do anything you want at any time of the year. And it's just a good way to keep the gameplay a little bit higher and a little bit more interesting. So definitely one to consider. The next icon is weather, which we were just looking at. It's just bumped it down an icon on the page. Kind of a handy one. It gives you an hour by hour forecast and tells you what the weather's going to be like in future months. Sometimes a good thing, if you know you've got one window left in your harvest window and it's going to rain, you maybe want to consider getting the harvest in earlier or something like that. The next one is the prices. So this will show you the prices that you will get for each of the products. So what you'll see here is it will show you how much of the product you've got stored, if you have any stored, and it'll tell you the best price for it. So you can see here there is 4 places that you can sell wheat on this map, and they range from £844 as the lowest to 986 at the highest. Now, as time goes on, as you move through the months and go through different seasons, it will show you different prices. And the reason for that is if you see this button down here, you click on here, there are certain times of the year when it's better to sell the grain or the product. So bear that in mind as well. And keep checking back to this because it does move on a regular basis. So just keep an eye on that and you will know the best time to sell your crops. The next icon here is your vehicle overview. Basically shows you what you own, how long you've owned it for, how many hours are on it, how much repair it needs or state of repair it needs, and the cost of it at the moment. Very simple screen, but a nice one to have there. As is the following screen, which is your finances screen. Again, this shows you if you're making money or losing money. As you can see, we are $9 down at the moment for wages. I can't think. That will be our truck that we just sent off using the AI helpers. Actually charged us $9 for the privilege of him driving from one point to another. So do keep an eye on that. The nice thing about this screen as well is you can take out a loan. You do have to pay it back at some point, and you do pay interest on it every day. But if you want to borrow a little bit of money to tide you by, you can click the space bar and it goes up in $5,000 implements, and it goes all the way up to 500,000. Can be handy, but also bear in mind you've got to pay it back at some point. The next screen is for animals. Animals is something we will cover off in a future episode, but if you owned any animals, they would show up here. It would talk you through how much food they have, how much product they've made. For example, sheep make wool, cows make milk, and any outputs as well, such as manure or slurry for cows. So again, animals is a specific episode we'll have coming up, so we will come back to that at a future date. The next icon is your contracts, and as you can see here, we have a few little contracts going on here. Now, the nice thing about contracts is you can earn a little bit of extra money. There's 2 ways you can do this. You can use your own equipment. So, for example, this harvesting contract here, we have all of this stuff. We have our combine in the field and we have a trailer, so we could use our own equipment to do that one. Or we can borrow the equipment that you can see at the bottom here and have a play with some different stuff in the game. Now, the only thing with that is you would lose a certain amount of the fee. So, for example, if you want to borrow this equipment here, you would get a reduced reward, and it would take £812 off the final total. Sometimes it's good to have a play around. Other times, it depends how tight money is really. If you want to, you can use your own equipment. But 3 contracts here, and these change throughout the year as and when certain things are happening in certain fields. So good to check this out if you want to make a little bit of money on the side, if you finished all the stuff that you need to on your farm and you're waiting for your crops to grow. Very handy. I know a lot of people that play a lot of contracts, so it's a nice little extra to the game. Underneath our contracts button, we have production chains. And again, thank you to Jody, who requested this after the last video. We will be doing a full video on production chains. There is a lot to take in with the production chains. New to Farming Simulator 22 as well. So a really great addition, and it really expanded how we play the game. So well worth coming back to that one at a future date. But in essence, what you do is take the products that you've made on the farm. You, instead of selling them straight away and taking money for them, you can add them to certain productions and they will create different things. So, for example, you can take your crops to a cereal production point, or you can take it to a flour mill to make bread. So there's lots and lots of different things that you can do, and some of those products that you can create off the back of the base products will earn you a lot more money. So well worth considering looking at productions. And like I said, we will do a full video on that. It's too much to go into detail-wise here. So stay tuned for that one as well. Your next button is stats. So if you want to know everything about this game save, this is where you will find it. As you can imagine, we haven't done much here because we are just starting out. But it tells you the time you've played the game, 29 minutes in total, and everything that you have done in the game to date. So always nice to have some stats to show off to your mates with. Now the next one, we did obviously jump quickly to this in the first episode and again here to turn on seasonal growth. But this is basically your in-game settings for this particular game save. Now this is separate to some of the settings that you have at the higher level at the main menu, so you might want to consider checking some of these as well if you want to play around with some of them, and we'll quickly run through these. But pause game does exactly what you would expect. It pauses the game. Now remember when we loaded the game up and it said my game save? So here you could change this to something else memorable if you want to. FSG's first game. Now if you hit the save game button here, it won't record that. You have to remember to hit the enter key to lock it in. That was something I always forgot to do and just confused myself every time I came and it said my game save again. Small thing, but might be handy. Autosave interval, every 15 minutes it will save the game if you go into these menus. So you have to remember to go into the menu. It will, if it's been more than 15 minutes since you've been into a menu, it won't save the game until you go into the menu and then it will save it. Or you can manually go into these at any point and hit save game as well. So you've got that option as well. Timescale is the speed that the game runs at. So you can go all the way up to 360 times here, which will pass the time of the day. Again, a nice way of passing time if you don't want to lose a whole day. You can obviously send yourself to sleep if you want to go to sleep. That will take you to the next morning. Whereas if you just want to jump a couple of hours, maybe it's raining or something, and you know it's not going to rain in the afternoon, you could skip forward a few hours doing it that way. Economic difficulty, because it's a new game and we are in new player mode, it is an easy. You've got three options: easy, normal, and hard. And all that really does is adjust the cost or the price of crops, and it makes the profit a lot less on those crops. So it's a good challenge, though, one worth seeing. Traffic is what you would expect. There is AI traffic driving around the map. It is very unforgiving. So again, some people pretty much turn traffic off as soon as they go into a game. But it's entirely up to you. It's smarter than it was in FS19. It does recognize you and slow down and stop a little bit more often now. But it won't be long until you have a little story about an incident with traffic. Now scrolling down, seasonal growth, we've talked about already. You can have this on. You can pause it or you can turn it off, as I've suggested. And again, this is just a suggestion. At the end of the day, this is your game. You can play it however you want. But I felt it helped me at the start when I was starting to play the game, that you can just get through things a little bit quicker. You don't have to wait for certain things to happen. Days per month, it's set to 1 day by default, but it goes all the way up to 28 days. So you can actually run almost real-time days if you wanted. But that will take a lot of time to get through. So most people run it maybe 1, 2, or 3 days to start with. Fixed visual month, if you want it to always look like December, you can do that. Tend to leave that one switched off most of the time. Snow, I've never touched, to be honest. If it snows in the game, it's quite a nice thing, actually. It's a little bit of variety. And you can buy certain equipment to clear the snow on the roads as well. So that's quite good fun. And then you've got some settings for the game. Crop destruction. So basically, if you drive a tractor onto a field full of wheat at the moment, it will destroy the wheat that the tyres drive over. You can have that on or off. Periodic ploughing required. Again, some crops require you to plough a field after you've harvested them, corn being one of them. But you can turn that off if you don't want to do that. Again, totally up to you. Fieldstone, we talked about stone before. That's where you turn that on and off. Again, lime, you can turn that on and off there. And weeds, you can turn that on and off there as well. And then we're into vehicle control. So dirt, normal. I can't remember any time that I've changed that. Automatic engine start on. Now, let me demonstrate that one. That's a good one to demonstrate. So let's just jump into this little tractor here. Hopefully, you'll be able to hear this. As I jump into the tractor, you hear the tractor start up and you can see the exhaust just ticking away there. Now if I get out of the tractor again, which is the E button, and you can see I've left my F1 menu up there to show you that. E gets you in the tractor and the engine starts. E gets you out of the tractor again and the engine stops. Now if I go back to my menu here, and there's a perfect example of how the 15-minute save starts. I will scroll down to automatic engine start. Now I turn that off. Now when I get back into the tractor, press the E button again, you will hear that the engine doesn't start, but you'll see in my controls in the top corner there, I have start engine, which is the enter key. So if I press enter key, the engine runs. Now, again, if I press E, I can get out of the tractor and the engine stays running. So, again, personal choice, completely personal choice. I like to have it with the engine set like that. But again, if you don't want to be bothered about that to start with, that's totally fine as well. Stop and go braking, I always have that switched on, but basically when you press the brake button as hard as you can, once you bring your tractor or vehicle to a stop, it will start reversing. It's kind of a handy one to have. Trailer fill limit as well. Trailers can only be filled until a max allowed weight is reached. I've never turned that on. I'm all for overfilling trailers if it means one less load. And fuel usage, you can adjust this to low, normal or high as you see fit. Again, that adjusts itself as you go through the different game modes, easy, hard as well. So bear that in mind. And then down here, your AI workers. So we looked at them before. If you've got one of those working in a field, planting a field or fertilizing a field, they will automatically buy the product as it runs down. So again, you don't have to worry about refilling your vehicles if you have this set to buy. You can obviously turn it off, and that would mean you would have to go and buy new product at the shop and bring it to the field to fill any of your vehicles up. Now, down to the large cog here. This is more general settings. So this is your help window. That's your F1 window. That is switched on. I've always left that on. Colorblind mode. Obviously, if you're colorblind, they have some nice settings to help benefit you and avoid the problems with different colors there. So handy to have that. Interactive zone markers. I have these switched on at the moment. You will have seen these all over the map. But these are these little icons here that help you understand what is what. For example, if we turn them off, you will see they have gone. So again, really it's just a realism thing. If you want them on, leave them on. If you don't, you can turn them off. It does help to have them on to know where things are, but over time, you will maybe get used to where they are. Info triggers, show info triggers, which give you helpful information about important gameplay elements. Again, I've never turned that off. That just sits and does its thing. Field info on as well. A quick example of what that looks like. If I walk up to a field here, you can see it is owned by me. It tells you the crop type, it tells you that it's ready to harvest, so the stage of growth. The yield bonus, so we must have done something with this because it's got a 38% bonus on the yield, but it hasn't been fertilised at all and it needs lime. So handy to have that field information available to you. Then you've got your units here, dollars, miles, Fahrenheit, acres. Again, you can switch those to different things. Depending on where you come in the world, you have 3 standard currencies in the base game, but there is a mod that gives you additional ones, so we'll look at mods again in a future episode as well. Radio, you can have that off or on. Reset vehicle camera, we have that switched to off at the moment. Now this remembers the camera position of each vehicle once you exit it, and let me just example of that. So let's go face on here. That's a nice angle. If I get out of the tractor and walk away and walk back, if I get in now, it remembers where I left the camera. Now, if you turn that off, or on, beg your pardon, next time you get in, it always zeroes it back to looking at you from behind. So, again, personal preference. All of this is personal preference. Indoor camera suspension, dynamic vehicle camera. These are all certain ways that the camera treats things when you're in it. Again, play around with these. You You can bounce up and down if you have your camera suspension on, dynamical vehicle camera. If that's on, it will lock your horizon off, which is quite nice. And invert Y look, remember we had that in the main menus at the start of the game as well. Now you've got lots of input controls here. Easy arm controls. Now that's quite a good one for simplified controls for things like cranes. One to look at when we've got a crane. We'll look at that in a future episode as well. Camera sensitivity, vehicle arm sensitivity, steering speeds, directional changes, gear shift mode if you want to drive in manual. We've got ours automatic at the moment, but you can drive manual with a clutch if you've got a clutch and a gear stick on your steering wheel, or you can go full manual and shift up and down using the keyboard and mouse or your controller if you want to. Speedometer displays the vehicle speed, or you can have revs in there as well. Switch to trains. There is trains on certain maps, so if you're tabbing through your vehicles, which is something you can do, the train will be one of those as well. Now we've got input help mode here. We talked about this before. Keyboard, as we are on keyboard and mouse, but let me just switch that to gamepad. And if I come out of here, you can see then your controls up in the top left-hand corner there have switched to different gamepad control settings rather than keyboard and mouse settings. Let's switch that back to keyboard. Beacon light brightness is what it is. Why would you not ever have it 100%? And then sound down at the bottom here. Again, you can adjust these from the main menu pre-game, but you've got them here as well to play with. And again, down here, keyboard controls, we covered this in detail in the first episode, so you can go and check that out again if you want. But all your controls, both gamepad and keyboard, are available here. And then the last one here is your help menu. Now, as I suggested the Farmer's Handbook at the end of the last episode, if you want some quick information, this is quite a nice place to get you through some of the real basics. From everything from how to spend money, arable farming, cultivating, going through the stages of preparing fields and harvesting fields, how you can improve your yields, different crops, so it covers some of the other things that you maybe don't have as much information on or as knowledge of, cotton, sugarcane, grapes and olives as well. Seasonal farming, so it talks about seasonal growth and everything in there. Your animals, forestry, so some good stuff in there. It doesn't go into huge detail, but it might just help you out to start with. Now, save game and quick game aren't on all of these, but they are on certain ones. As you can see, with keyboard controls, you've got basically your save options there once you've changed things. But again, it's in your general settings and it's in your game settings. Not in your statistics, not in productions or contracts, because it's switched them out for contract buttons. Again, with animals, there are options down here once you have animals. Got your loan, borrow and repay options there. And again, different things all the way up here. So I think literally when you go all the way back to the top, that is your options. So if you want to save your game, you need to come down to one of these two, probably is your best bet. Or if it's more than 15 minutes, like I said, you just hit escape and come into the menus, the game will save automatically anyway. And finally, just before we go, as you can see now we're sitting in the tractor, it does show you all of the relevant controls, and over time you'll get used to these and they will become second nature. You'll hit the buttons without even thinking about it. But to start with, it's a very handy tool to have. The F1 menu that sits up there in the left hand corner and tells you some of the key buttons that you may need to help you get started and memorize them. But we have talked for far too long now, so I am going to stop this here. I hope that was useful. We will get into some more of the interesting stuff now, but I was really keen to cover off all of the menu items and what they do just at the start, and then we will get into some proper gameplay and understanding a few other things about the game. But for now, I hope that was useful. Thank you very, very much for watching. As I said before, if there's anything you want to know or are keen to look forward to going forward, let me know and we'll try and do a future video on them. But for now, from me, the FarmSim guy, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you again very soon. Take care. Bye for now.